So you want to talk about deciding to open the business and us deciding for me to become a stay-at-home mom.
Oh yeah, that was the day everything changed. Really, Jesus. Yeah. Well, I mean, it all started with me finally getting my license, right? It was just
Opening the business, yeah. But I became a stay-at-home mom before you even left Peterson.
Right, right. But I think where was that? Where was that at in that? I'm just trying to have to like re-jog my memory.
Yeah. So Selena was born during COVID. Selena was born in April of 2020. And then I was supposed to go back to work in July. I had worked like part-time with Cammy. Remember, I was working like a few nights a week.
Right.
And every other weekend at Leahy.
Right.
But then Selena was like so small, remember?
Yeah. No. Okay. Now exactly.
Yeah.
That's why you're here.
Oh, thanks, really?
No.
That's why you're here.
But no, absolutely. I remember that, and it was the hardest thing. I remember because she was so little. Because you breastfed Cammy up until Selena was born.
Yeah.
And so which we never knew about mature milk and the milk of what baby needed at the time and things like that.
So it took a while for my milk to switch over to what Selena needed. And it took her so long to gain weight. And I had days of just like crying and like hysterically crying in the pediatrician's office because she wouldn't gain weight. And it was so stressful. And I remember like my heart was just really telling me like, I don't want to leave her.
Right.
I don't want to leave these kids. And I think you were a little hesitant at first, I think, to have me stay home.
Right. Because obviously we think about it, it's almost everyone has a 2-income household, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, and at that time, it was just so crazy to think that we had like a $1,200 mortgage, and
I know, it's crazy.
If only we had that now. But like,
I know.
We had like a $1,200 mortgage, but I remember that it was, we're still living paycheck to paycheck. Like, we still haven't really made that big switch yet. And
yeah, we didn't have the income that we have now. Like, it's not like if we decided to do that now. You were just working at Peterson, getting your weekly check, and then you would do side work.
And then we did side work.
Yeah.
And then, what ended up happening was that exactly like you would tell me, like all those stresses and anxieties that you had of like leaving Selena. But then it was also like, here's another thing too. Like, I know people probably like, oh, just give him formula, whatever. No, because the thing is that Selena was a nipple connoisseur. She only wanted Meg's breast. That was it.
She was so
and
brutal.
Staged an absolute hunger strike if you dared come at her with a bottle of formula. So, never mind.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying every bottle in history. I bought one single bottle that cost $28. That's how bad I was trying to get her to take a bottle. Because at that point, she was like...
you came back with that nipple. You're like...
This is going to be the one.
This is going to be the one. And then I'm like, oh, how much was it? She's like, you like this thing? $28? And I'm like, let me feel this thing.
This better be an actual nipple.
This better be a nipple. If someone cut it off someone's body and put it on a thing, and she was like, yeah, no.
Nope, she never took a bottle. I could not leave the house for more than 2 hours at a time. She just wouldn't. She just wouldn't do it. She eventually started gaining weight, obviously. She got nice and chubby, and all was well with the world. But it was a stressful time for me, and it was on my heart big time that I wanted to stay home with the girls.
And it was like one of those things that, like, in the conversations that you and I had, because obviously, like, you would lay down in bed and you would tell me about how it is that you felt about it, and, at the end of the day, no one's going to take care of the kids like their mother. No one's going to love them and do all those different things. And at that point, we made a decision of, like, you know what? Like, if we're going to do this, I just need your support.
Right.
And I remember that I'm like, I'm going to have to do side work and all these different things. And I think that was like the catalyst, like, kind of like, all right, we made a decision of like, this is what we're going to do the best for our family. We're going to tighten our belt here at the house. Like, you know, we're going to take the cable off. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Like, we're going to rebudget. And that's what we did. Like, it was just kind of like one of those things, like, for the betterment of our family, like, we made that decision. And then I got licensed finally.
Yeah, you got licensed that December. So it was kind of all like, it kind of all rolled into each other. Because I think like us also knowing that most likely you were going to go out on your own after getting licensed.
Right. It was like one of those things that like, I remember that I had like the idea in my head. I'm like this. I'm like, all right, I'm going to kind of, here's this thing that's been hanging over my head for like the longest time about the reasons why they're not paying me X and things like that. And when I finally got licensed, I went into it thinking like, all right, this is what I want. Like here, I gave him two scenarios. Like, all right, you're going to give me whatever your cap is. And then with the plan of like, you're going to bring me into the office, like make me an estimator or something like that. Or you make me an estimator now. And you put me on salary.
Right. That was the only way you were going to stay. Right?
That was the only way I was going to stay.
Yeah.
And then if you didn't want to do either one of those, here's my 2 weeks. Or I think I said, I was like, I'll finish this project that I was wrong.
Yeah.
And I need to go off. Because at that point, like, it was some advice that my brother gave me that, you know, I say it all the time now. It was at that moment when I realized that they're never going to pay me enough to live next door to them.
No, definitely not.
And
now owning a business ourselves, like, you get it.
yeah, it's a business, I get it. But, like, it was tough, too, because I'm like, I'm a hitter. Like,
yeah.
I'm like this.
You were, like, such a main guy there.
I was a major cog of the wheel. Yeah. And it was tough, but I get it from a business perspective. But then also, you know, those are them. I think for me then, still even at that point where I was, I think I had visions and ideas of grandeur. Like I saw things differently than they did. And I think they were in like this comfortable niche. And that's where they like to stay. Yeah. I'm in my wheelhouse. I don't want to get any bigger than this. This is where I'm at. And the thing is that my visions for were bigger.
Right.
And now looking back at it and looking at it, so it was exactly what needed to happen. And then
it's just crazy looking back on it. Like, we just started the business with literally nothing.
Yeah,
I wasn't working.
How are we gonna do this? Like, yeah, literally, we're living paycheck to paycheck. We had nothing in savings.
I wasn't working. I mean, we had already decided for me to be a stay-at-home mom.
Right, but I think at this point, like, I remember that, like, we were on an up, at least money management wise.
Yeah, for sure.
That, like
we put the mortgage on auto pay.
Yeah. That was a fucking flex. That was a flex. If we put the mortgage on auto pay, that's when you know you made it. We're like, we put extra in that shit.
Yeah,
too.
I know, we paid extra.
Yeah. It was like,
oh, look at
that was a flex. That was a flex. Like, you know, I ain't waiting until the 14th. But,
But yeah, no, we were in like a little bit better as far as like, we were keeping money in the bank and things like that.
Right.
Excuse our dog, he barks at everything that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like a bag that flew by.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was probably like our big thing about it. And then what it is that we ended up doing was that like we had that conversation.
Yep.
You know, we had that conversation amongst each other. I might have to like go like, Chi-Chi! Chi-Chi!
One last little bark.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had that conversation. You sold your motorcycle.
Yeah, and then it was finally, well that was like for a lot of things, because like obviously at that time, I wasn't doing a lot of riding.
Right.
At that time, and it was just collecting dust in the garage and stuff like that. And then finally, I'm like, you know what? Like, we need to buy a truck. We need to do this. We need to do that. I'm like, and then I made a deal with you that, you know, I'm going to sell the bike and we're going to get it on a record for now. I
knew he was going to bring this up.
Yeah. I remember. So I made a deal with her. I'm like, listen, I'll sell, because listen, my bike was like my bike. All right. It was Black Betty. It was awesome. It was a 2015 Real Guy Special. Mint. But anyhow, I made the choice. I'm like, listen, I'm going to sell the bike to start the company. And when the kids get to be about 4 or 5, I'm going to buy my other one. And you can't get mad at me for how much money I spend on it.
And I said, okay, but now I take it back. And it's not about the money. It's about my anxiety. So.
Because the kids are getting to be 4 or 5 this year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It came too fast.
Yeah. But it was definitely probably the best decision I ever made, like we ever made. But we sold the bike. And you know what that, like, I think it was honestly blessings at that point. I think it was just things kind of started happening. It was right before COVID.
It was during COVID.
It was during COVID, that's right. 'Cause I remember that, the whole bank fiasco thing.
Yeah, don't forget too, like the day you got your license, you came home and I was like, I'm so proud of you. And also, Brady has COVID and I was with him yesterday, so now you can't go to work for the next 2 weeks. Because that was how the rule was at that point, remember?
Right, if you had the exposure and all those different things. Oh my God, what a crazy time though.
Oh my God, insane.
Absolutely crazy time. But, you know, we made that decision, right? So like all right, so now we got the money, we ended up, you know, we found the truck.
Yep.
And it was everything. It was probably the most perfect thing in the world. And
it was a steal then, too. Because this is
right?
the end of 2020.
Right, then it went nuts. Like, that same truck goes for
$60,000 now.
Well,
yeah.
Right, goes for double of what I paid for.
Yeah.
And, that was it. Like, and it was, but I remember, like, you and I, like, we sat down, we had that conversation. I'm like, listen, if we're gonna do this, like, I think basically we laid out those expectations. I'm like, this is a sacrifice that I'm going to need to make, and I'm gonna have longer days. I'm gonna have those times where I need to run out to do this. Like, it was all these different things, and it was telling you what I needed from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I needed to like learn how to support you in that way, right? Because when you were working a job for another company, you're gone from 6 to 2 every day. And then maybe you're doing side work like, you know, 2 nights a week or something. But even then, you're still home by like 7, right? I mean, for the most part, now you are, but obviously when you were first starting the business, I mean, there were days that I wouldn't see you from, you know, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Right? So, but those were obviously sacrifices that I knew that we had to make, you know, so that the business could grow and that it could get to the point where it is now. I mean, back then you were saying like, all I have to do is make $500 a week.
Yeah.
Which is legitimately
now, like, all I have to do is make $5,000 a week.
A day.
Yeah, I need to make $5,000 a day. Oh, simpler times.
Yeah, it was. I mean, because think about it, even when you hired your first guy, like, you know,
I was shitting bricks.
I know.
I'm like, but it was funny because I remember like when exactly, like, I was running myself right. I was doing tons of service calls, tons of things in which, you know, not turning nothing down. Like, it was literally doing everything it is in my power, and whether it was changing out an outlet, changing out a light bulb, changing out doorbells, like, it was whatever it was. Like, I'm gonna do this, and like, you know, here I am going from like, you know,
like to Waltham.
Right. Yeah. What I'm saying is that from like work wise, like, here I am going to like these like, you know, $100 million projects and like these massive, like, awesome, cool, working on cool shit. To, yeah, let me change out someone's garbage disposal. Let me like change out their outlet. And it was just kind of like, wow, like, it's the kind of going back to like those humble beginnings, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, finally we ended up, you know, gaining traction, and it was just so much, and I was just like, oh my God, like, and I think it was like 3 months in. It was like 3 months or 4 months in.
It was 3 months in,
It was 3 months in that I'm like, oh my God, I just need somebody just to help me just set up the job site, because that was what killed me, because like setting it up, dropping off, cleaning up. Chi-Chi! it was like one of those things of like, well, now let me set up. I forgot I was going with that, but it was.
You needed a guy to set you up.
Yeah, I needed a guy to basically set me up, right? That was exactly where it was, and it was like also to break down a job.
Yeah.
Right. And
to clean up. That's what you really wanted them for.
I really wanted to clean up because I'm like, it killed me because I would take all the time in prepping so that way, like, I can just work and I don't have to worry about like freaking mopping and well, I still mopped and did all the other stuff. But I think that's really what helped build our reputation because we really cared for people's homes, and I think that message kind of got out there, right? But I'll never forget that the way how I met Jake was through, she was...
Mia's gymnastics coach.
Mia's gymnastics coach was Jake's fiance, and she would see that I would, pull up in like my leaded van and I would sit in Mia's practices or go to her meets and stuff like that, and I have like my shirt, and she's like, oh, like, all of a sudden I get an email. Like,
yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell is this? And then she's like, oh, like, hope you don't mind me, like, emailing you and things like that. And like,
shout out Becca.
Yeah, Becca. And, she's like, oh, like, my fiance went to school for electrical, but he's having such a hard time finding a job. He's working at Home Depot right now. Like, are you looking for an apprentice? And at that time, I'm like, yeah, like, you know what? Like, I'm new at being a boss. And he's green. Like, he does know nothing.
And I can remember, we were actually going to Florida, remember? Just you and I, like, our first, like, post-baby trip by ourselves. Yeah. And I remember sitting in the dining room, and I was setting up QuickBooks with his information. And, we were paying him low at the time because he was a brand new apprentice. And you being like, how much is payroll going to be every week?
My God.
And like freaking out. And you're like, oh my God. And I'm like, don't worry, you don't have to pay him until like the week after next. Like, so like, oh my God, like, how are we going to handle this? Like, I don't even know, like $400 coming out of the account or something crazy. Right. And like just to think of like how it's scaled since then is so crazy.
Oh, right. Like, but I remember like the conversation that I had with him where I'm like, listen, dude, like, I have no idea how to be a boss. I was like, I know how to work. I know how to get work. I have a dream. I don't know how the hell I'm going to get there. But I know I'm going to get there. I have a vision.
You're a good teacher, though.
Well, I wasn't in the beginning with him because there was one point of contention. Well, not contention, but where... obviously, the evolution of me, of like, becoming a better father, and at that point, I became a better listener.
Yeah.
There was times, that, and now, like, I feel like it's kind of like I could probably do on the other podcasts that we have coming up when I really dive a little bit more into the business side of it.
Yeah.
And on the Hard Hat Horizons podcast, and in that podcast, we're going to kind of go through, assuming a leadership role and how to basically pull greatness out of your guys and utilize them to how they work the right way, so stay tuned for that. But, to kind of finish kind of this part, because like I said, it's kind of getting off a little bit off topic. I don't want to
go too far,
that, Jake was somebody that he learned differently. And I was brutal with the guys before in the past.
Yeah.
Brutal. And it's stuff that I apologize for to those people that I'm like, sorry, like I just taught you the way how I was taught. And it was a sink or swim, and it was so tough, and it's like everyone's different, everyone learns differently. And so with Jake I was able to do that, and like, with Jake, like he's we always make the joke. I'm like, he's my son. Essentially, I make him call me daddy at work.
I got the time sheets and like they did work here, and he'll put daddy's house. I'm like, okay, Jake, relax. Okay.
He's a fucking best. You leave my boy alone. But yeah, it's like, but
yeah, I mean, I think just to kind of tie it in to like me becoming a stay-at-home mom around the same time, like as you were growing and the business was kind of flourishing, like I was holding it down at home, but at the same time, I felt like I was really like losing myself.
Yes, because I mean, let's be honest, you were pregnant for 2 years straight, and but like in your breastfeeding, and like you're just like this vessel of life.
Yeah, I mean, I was pregnant or breastfeeding for almost 3 years, like straight. My body had no break. I mean, I was pregnant with Camila in September of 2018, had her in May of 2019, and I was pregnant again in August of 2019. And I literally breastfed her up until, like, I had Selena at 8:04 a.m. on April 29th, and I was breastfeeding Camila at 5 o'clock that morning before we left for the hospital. Yeah. So, like, when I say my body had no break, I mean my body had no break. And it was really important to me to breastfeed both of them for a year. Like, that was something that I really wanted to do. But, you know, I didn't exercise. I didn't see friends. I didn't go, you know, I barely would even... I would see my sisters, but only if we were with the kids. And then obviously after Selena was born, it was COVID. Like, I don't know if you remember, but when people were coming to meet her, they would sit on the porch and Lynn. We would like hold her up like she was fucking Simba. Like, here's the baby. And they're like sitting outside, and it's like mental to think about that time lost with loved ones, you know? And so, you know, the kids weren't even going to school. They were home. Yeah. You know? So here I am, like, homeschool teaching them, you know, not barely leaving the house, breastfeeding. You know, Camila was only 1 at the time. And I was just so wrapped up in it. I, like, couldn't find myself at all. I gained so much weight.
Oh, like, I mean, your identity at that time was, like, mother, wife. It was a role. Essentially, it had no personality to it. It's just like, well, this is my job. It's like clocking in, clocking out every day.
Yeah, and I can remember saying to you, like, I don't even remember what I like. You know, like, I don't like. What do I like to do? What did I like to do before any of this happened to me? Because it was such a whirlwind.
It was,
you know,
and it was like, you know, and even like for me, it was tough because obviously we're just going through this together, and like, and I think it's so easy to kind of just lose sight of what's important in it, because I remember that during that whole entire time, exactly, like you're just I was
just a mom. That's what I felt like. I was just a mom.
And it's like now, like, look, I think for me it was also learning that about you having that identity issue, and kind of like, well. And I think that there's like a lot of women out there that they never get out of that. You know, it's like, I feel like as if,
it took me a long time.
It took me a long time.
Selena's almost 4, and I just feel like now I'm finally like a really good, happy version of myself that has things like outside of motherhood, you know?
Right.
But I've still struggled with it at times. Like, you know, I tried to go back to work. That whole fiasco.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the reason
because
why...
I would say, like, I just feel like I'm not doing anything tangible. Like, I can clean all day, the house is still a mess. I do laundry all day, every day, I still have to do laundry the next day. Like, where is it coming from, you know? Right. I take care of the kids, I nurture the kids, but, like, you can't physically see that. You know, that's what I felt like.
Yeah, I think you wanted something more of like checks and balances, in the sense of that, like, you know, it's exactly like tangible. It's just like one of those things. It's just like, well, this is what I'm putting into it. Like, it's like almost like putting a dollar amount to it.
Exactly. And I always worked, right? Like, I you know, I was a pharmacy tech for years and years. Like, when Carly was younger, like, I had a job that I loved at CVS. You know, I had 17 different stores that I traveled to. Like, I had so many friends. Like, I was, you know, constantly out if Carly wasn't with me, and like dinners and all that stuff. And then when you and I first met, that's what it was like too. And then, like, boom, everything just kind of like got taken away from me. And it was so hard because it's like, I'm so grateful that I get to be a stay-at-home mom. I don't want anyone to think that like that's not the case, because I would never want anybody else to be with my kids. Like I've gotten to experience every single thing with them, you know, and not just the babies, even the older girls. Like I'm here when they get home from school. I'm able to go to all their sporting events. Like if they want to talk to me, they know I'm in the house, you know?
Right.
So it's not that I'm not grateful, but it just, especially at first and really for like, I don't know, probably 3 years, right? I just really struggled with those feelings of like, what am I even doing? Like, what am I bringing to the table? And I would say to you, even remember, like, I would have nothing if it wasn't for you.
Right. And I think that was like one thing that I would always say to you too. Like it was things that I would tell you. I'm like, well, no, like you do a lot for us here. Like you do a lot here in this home. Like, and it finally got to a point where it's like, it didn't matter anything I told you. It's something that you felt within yourself and realizing it's like, well, these are your feelings, right? And this is the way how you feel about it. And then, so I think at that point, you found a job overnight, and we're like, okay, like we'll make it work and things like that. And we tried it out. And I'm like, I think it was like a couple of weeks of that. And I remember I'm like, yeah, no, it's not working for me. Like I missed you. Yeah. It was like I did not like not being with you. Then on top of that, it's how much we relied on you. Like you were like the glue of this family. Like you were the one that you were just that major cog in the middle of a clock, and that without of it, nothing moves on time. And that was how it was. Because as soon as you removed your piece from it, yes, did it work or did this get done? Yeah, but it was a fucking mess. Like,
the girls were like, what is going on?
Yeah. It's 7 o'clock, dinner's not on the table, like, we usually eating by 5, and I'm like, the kids are going to bed at 10, and I'm like, I'm trying my best. I mean, like, do you know what I'm saying? And it's not like, and like, it was just, but it was not only that, it just didn't feel like home.
Yeah.
And that's what it was for me, is like, no, like, we need Maggie, like we need mom home, like, it's, and that was the conversation we had that was just like, babe, I'm like this doesn't work without you. Like you need to be here. This is your job here. Like this is your role here. And at that point, I think you finally saw the value in what it is that, like, it's like you needed to kind of go through that in order to see that value.
Yeah, I think I had to kind of like go back to work to realize how much I actually was needed here, because I started to feel like, oh, well, like, you know, the babies go to school a couple days a week and the older girls are in school. Like, I don't know, I'm just like not as needed anymore. That's what I was feeling like. And then I went back to work for like 3 weeks and realized how much everybody needs me for literally everything.
Yeah, because of shit. I'm like, I can't do what I need to do. And it was like the hardest thing. And like,
well, it was stressful too, right? Because like as a business owner, you don't really know necessarily, like you don't work just like a 6 to 2 every day, no. Right? So on those nights, if I was going in at 3, then like I would need you to like rush home, and it just really like complicated things for us.
Right.
But I do think like that was kind of like a good kind of like wake up call for me in a sense, to be like, no, you know what, like what I'm doing as a stay-at-home mom really does have value and it is important. But what I think that we kind of realized after that was like, okay, like I need to do things for myself though. Like I can't just like, I can't keep going like this. Like it's not healthy for me.
Right. And then the other thing is too, was that in all of that, another thing that I think that we didn't really touch upon yet was the fact of that, because you had that stressor, like you didn't value what it was that you did. If things were not done in the house, the amount of guilt you carried within yourself of like, well, Jesus Christ, like I'm a stay-at-home mom, like what else? Like why can't I just get this thing done? Or all
I think
these
I would
different
say
things.
that to you.
You would say it to me.
Like, this is the only, like, this is my only job and I can't even do it.
Right, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah,
I'll come home and you would be upset.
Yeah, and I mean, just FYI, like, Kyle never made me feel any of these things, like, but that was how I felt. Like, it was something deep rooted in me, like, oh my god, like, I can't have him come home and not have the laundry done. Like, he was out working all day, like, what was I even doing? But then what I actually started doing was, if I felt like that, I would write down everything that I actually did in the day. Not for you, but for me, so that I could look and be like, Jesus, like, I'm so hard on myself for not getting this laundry done. But when I write down everything I did today, it's like 40 things.
Right.
You know? Not to mention that, like, part of that is just, like, being there emotionally
Right.
and physically for my kids, you know?
Right. And like you said, it's like, because it's nothing tangible, right? It's stuff that's all sight unseen. You know, you're like, well, what do I have to show for it? You know what I'm saying? So it's like one of those things. And so, like, I remember, like, those times of, like, coming home and you're like, oh, I'm sorry I did this one. Why are you sorry? Like, tomorrow's another day. You can just do it tomorrow. It's no big deal. But then also my role in that coming home, but then also seeing, like, if there's something else that's going on, it's my house too. I'll come home and I'll help out. Like, I'll clean. It's not like as if, like, oh, well, I've been out all day making the money. You got to take care of the house. Like, that wasn't something that I believed in either. It was something like, this is my house too. These are my kids too. These are my kids too. Like, and if I make your life easier, you're gonna make my life easier. And that was, like, one thing that we learned with each other. It's just like, the more and more that I poured into you, the more you're gonna pour into me. Like, I you know what I'm saying? Like, so, like, I would come home, and if I did see that you're stressed, or if I did see, because it is tough emotionally, I get it, because there's so much shit going on in the day.
There is, and sometimes you don't talk to another adult.
Right.
That was very hard for me, you know?
And it's like this overstimulation of, like, these bright color shows and all these different noises and, you know, all these different things that goes on that, like, you know, as men, like I said, it's very different for men. Like, we can compartmentalize a lot of different things. We can see things and treat things a lot differently.
Yeah,
right?
not me. Like, my brain would be literally on fire. Like, I would be like, my body hurts because, you know, the noise and the sound, the lights and like, everything, you know? And
then, so, like, you know, I get this moments I would see, like, that, like, you're checked out, that you're just, like, you're just trying to get through something just to get to just sleep. And it's just
like, there were days that I would just be like, I just need to go. I need this day to be over. I need to go to bed.
And like, those are times it's like where it's like, you listen, you pay attention to your spouse, right? And you're just like, all right, just go lay down. Like, you know, we'll take care of cleanup. We'll do this. We'll do that. And it's just.
But for me, it was like that would almost sometimes like compound my guilt.
Right, because that's the reason why I kind of want to just get it out there, because, like, you would basically feel, like, more wrong about it. You're like, oh no, I don't want you to have to do that. You've been working all day.
Yeah.
I'm like, babe, like, I got it. Like, or if I was beat too, like, we were both beat, then this is getting done in the morning.
Yeah, except that's like.
Yeah, but then. But that's the thing is, it's like.
You're just learning those things, right?
Right, but then, like, so, but the way and how I would do it, because, like, learning that about you is, like, coming down and seeing a sink full of dishes. If I got up, like, I always get up before you for the most part, and then also, if I can move the bed, I can leave out of the bed, and the kids won't wake up. If you move, you're like, time to go. And it's just, and like, we've also known that, like, I think kids with their father is much different than the kids with their mother, because, like, my kids, like, our kids, like, when they're with me, they're absolute saints. Like, they'll be like, oh, yeah, you want me to make you breakfast? Yep, this is what I want. And they'll do their own thing, right? No problems, nothing like that. If she was to do, like, oh, I'm going to make you breakfast, why isn't it done yet? I want a smoothie. Oh, no, I don't want a smoothie. I'll do some pancakes instead. And it's just like.
The absolute harassment.
It's harassment. I'm like, you guys are bullies. Get away from her.
Like, my aunt and would always say, like, if anybody else treated you the way that your kids treat you, you would have them arrested.
Yeah.
She always used to say that when her kids were little.
It's facts. Like, it's facts. But, like, the thing is that, like, they're very different with me and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, I would wake up early, and if I saw something that was going to start your day off that way, I took care of it. Like I would unpack the dishwasher.
Yeah.
I would reload it. If it was sweeping, if it was, or, like I said, like one thing, the little small gesture of like putting your coffee mug in the coffee maker and just leaving the coffee pot there. It's something so small and insignificant. It's not different bringing your coffee in bed, but the fact of the matter is that I just took that step of like putting that coffee mug there, putting that K-cup in there, and just leaving it ready. And it just lets you know that I'm thinking of you.
Yeah, that's
and
what
I hope you have a good start of your day. Like, and I think it's like those little small gestures that, matter in supporting each other. Like, and same thing, like, you'll write me notes in
lunchbox. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's gold. Like, especially us, like, as men, like, we need affection more than anyone.
Yeah.
Like, we need that validation. We need that support. Like, we need that, like, that attaboy. And it's like how they say, like, men are dogs and women are cats. Like, we're that simple. Like, we're very task oriented. We need to have a job. And when we do our job well, be like, oh, good boy. You're like, yeah. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how simple we are as creatures, like, and as people. Like, and it's, so I think it's like in understanding and taking those times and obviously, getting to know the complexities of you at time and understanding you, but then also knowing like just how simple you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think like for me, like I would need those moments with you, like just me and you in bed, like after everyone was asleep, like so that we could just talk, so that I could like speak to another grown up, and that was the only time that I felt like I could decompress, and that was the only time that I like felt like myself. And I think like just kind of like going back to like our self-care episode, I realized that like my feelings about being a stay-at-home mom and like how bogged down I was in motherhood and like not having anything else for myself, like made those things so much harder for me. Right. Because I was like, no, I can't do that because I can't leave my kids. I don't like leaving my kids. I never like leaving my kids. Like I would have so much anxiety that it like wouldn't even be worth it to me, And I think you kind of were like, like we have to do this. Like we have to take time for ourselves, A, for our marriage, and B, so we can be good for them,
Right. I remember there was points of like, because you were so reluctant to do it because you felt that. I remember that like I used to make a spa day for you. I would schedule hair, nails, pedicure, like massage, like a whole day. But then here I am doing that, and then like the whole entire time you have anxiety because you're like, I'm away from my kids for so long. And
I can't have my phone, and what if something happens? And
it's like, and here I am, like I'm just thinking, I'm like, if she doesn't do it, like who is, right? And so I'm just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna just send her there. I'm like, she deserves it. Right? But then, like, here I am thinking, like, I'm doing this grand, awesome gesture, but then you're like, the whole entire time, like, he's like, oh, how's this feel? Feels great, and you're just nervous as shit. You're just like, oh my God, like, is everything okay? And it's just, that part never shuts off.
No,
right?
And never shut off for me. Because I can remember, like, one time I was going grocery shopping, but I was like, I'm just going to get a pedicure first. And the pedicure took like longer than I thought it was going to take. She was like just taking her time doing it. And I was sitting in the chair like, I can't go grocery shopping. Like I've already been away from my kids for an hour and a half. Like I was only planning on being away from them for an hour and a half total. Like that's really how crazy my mind was with it at the time. And honestly, I still don't like leaving the kids. It's still something that's hard for me. I mean, we went away, to Denver for CEDIA in September, and I had a panic attack at the concert that we were at.
Yeah, well, that was, yeah, like I said, those are major husband points for me.
I always say, thank God I have a nice husband. Oh my God.
Yeah.
We had to leave before the person who we wanted to see even came on.
The main event happened. But that's the thing is, like, I'm looking at her, I'm like, she is just ready to just, but in fairness, that was a long day. It was a lot that day and things like that. And so it's just,
they were starting school and it was just a whole thing. But,
yeah,
I just say it to say that even after learning to like prioritize myself and do things for myself and that it's okay to leave them and like, if they're with my mom, they're having a better time than they are having with me.
Yeah.
I just say all that to say that like I still struggle with those feelings because I know there's so many moms out there that struggle with that. I know there are.
Right. And like I said, I mean, like I mentioned before earlier, that some moms never break out of that and like they just lose themselves, and then in losing themselves, they lose their marriages, and that's how
I was going to say that. I don't know how in the world we kind of like kept our marriage as good as it was when I was feeling like that. Do you remember?
Honestly, I think it's because we just communicated all the time, and I think for me, because of the way how my brain works, like I'm very solution orientated, so it's just like I'm just like, all right, let me think. And you know what? Now it just came back to me. I remember like I was doing research. I'm like, oh, maybe you should just start doing this, and like maybe you should start doing that. Like, or well, I read this somewhere, and things like that. And then, but I think if you remember, Brenda was going through it too. And then like you guys, I kind of hooked you guys up with that because she was like, oh my god, like I'm feeling it too, because like her kids were basically born almost like right around the same exact time as Camille and Selena. Yeah, because Gio was
her son's a day older than
Cammy. So it was just, it was like one of those things that, I think at that point we started looking for outlets and things like that, and then we started going on walks. We started doing like other different things that were like, well, just find out whatever it is. But then also, I think it was like you communicating to me like, well, this is how I'm feeling, and then basically saying to you like, all right, well, let's carve out some time, go for a walk or go for a drive or read. That's what it was. That's what it was. You used to go for a drive and read in your car.
Yeah.
You would literally read in your car by yourself. That's what it was. That was kind of like the beginning of it. I
would go drive and park in a parking lot.
You would park in a parking lot
and read.
Grab a coffee and read.
Yeah.
Or you would go to the library. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Because that we've been talking about. That was exactly what it is you did. That's how you started. It was that little step that you did for yourself. And, and then eventually it's just like, I think at that point, you're like, you know what? I think of me saying it to you enough of like, listen, like, if you don't take care of yourself or if you don't feel good about it, you're never going to get better.
Yeah.
And you're like, you know what? Let me go get my nails done. And you get your nails done and you feel better about it. And that was like a little small thing because you always bit your nails your whole entire life.
My whole life.
And so, the fact that you're like, you know what? I'm going to get my nails done. I'm going to go into this and like do it this way. And it was like those little things like that just compounded, and to find the point of like, like you just said, you're able to do things and like be able to enjoy them, but you still kind of care. Like you obviously still carry some of the guilt with you.
Yeah.
And I just think that comes with the territory of being a great mom. Like I feel like you're just always gonna worry. You're just always gonna. I think it's just being a great mom. I think that.
I think like even my mom and aunt say like it never goes away. Like you still worry about your kids even when they're in their 30s. They have their own kids and stuff like
they're
that.
They're always going to be your babies, and that's just like with what it is. But I think it's like we've mentioned before in previous episodes of like, us taking care of ourselves also teaches them something.
Yeah, it's just a good example for them, right? Because I would say that to you too. I'm like, I would feel so upset if one of my kids becomes a mother and this is how they feel. I would feel so bad. Like I would tell them like, don't like, it's okay. Like you can go out, like you can, it doesn't make you not a good mom just because you have hobbies or things that you enjoy outside of being a mom. Like, and I would say that to them, or I would say that to my friend or whoever, but I was so hard on myself about it.
Right. And it's how it always is, right? Like it's like you can have the best advice for everybody else, but it's just like God forbid you take your own fucking advice.
It's so true.
It's like I know all the answers, but it ain't gonna work for me. Yeah. Or it's like you give your friends advice, but I don't know though. Like that.
I don't know.
Disclaimer.
Yeah.
So that way, if shit goes south, freaking you're upset. It's not on you.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, we just want to thank all you guys for listening. We've been getting so much good feedback. Like, we love hearing your stories. We have a lot of amazing guests lined up for you. I can't wait for you to hear their stories. And if you want to come on the podcast, let us know.
Yeah, definitely just go ahead and visit our pod page. And on that pod page, there is a referral, it's a request link right there at the bottom. Just go ahead and just fill out your information, put what topics it is you guys want to talk about. And we're more than happy to set it up. We have a nice setup going right now where we can do remote as well. So not just anybody that's local. But honestly, like my wife had just said, I just want to just sincerely thank you guys for all the support that we've gotten. And stay tuned. There's a lot more greatness coming.
Oh, and please like the page and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube.
Yes, subscribe.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, and leave reviews.
Reviews and all that stuff works. That helps support the page. But then also, we did launch a new option that if you guys wanted to support us in a monetary way, we offer shout outs, things like that. Check it out and let us know what you think.